What do you get when you take a college student majoring in marketing, add an outlook on that field that is so poor that said college student drops out and becomes a brewer? You get this guy.
So I was working at a brew pub at the time as a cook, became friends with the brewer, and to me, brewing actually isn't too far off from cooking, so I actually really liked it right off the bat. I found it interesting, and about a year after brewing, I decided I don't really want to go into business. I don't want to be a marketer. I would much rather be a brewer.
And with that game plan, you also get the brewer for Bad Martha's on Martha's Vineyard, a tourist destination so popular that the line goes out the door. And that is on a slow day. Jake Reed has been in the brewing business since 2015. He does plan on returning to finish his degree, but until then, he finds himself coming up with new flavors to tantalize customers' taste buds.
I did, yeah. I love it.
Bad Martha Beer was founded in 2013. It started as a contract brewer out of the Mercury Brewing Company, and then moved to Edgartown on Martha's Vineyard in 2014.
I mean, the owners are great. They give me free reign of what I want to brew, so that was really nice coming in. They said, we'll suggest beers every once in a while, but we're not going to tell you you have to brew certain things. They don't ever tell me that they don't want me, so I come up with crazy concepts. So like last year we did a jalapeno cucumber beer, and when I told them I was doing it, they said, what are you putting in beer? And I did it. They actually loved it, and so definitely since that point forward, they're like, you can say anything you want and we'll just allow you to do it. So I definitely get free reign in the brewing side, which is really nice. And then we have a general manager who's been with the company for 4 years now. He originally started as a bar back. Every year he's moved up, and now he's the general manager. So he definitely knows the in and outs of running this tap room, so that's very helpful having somebody who's been here since the beginning. And then every year is a little different. We don't have a lot of returning crew because we don't have a lot of the same people who are staying out here every single summer. So very training intensive in the very beginning of the season, and by the end of August, they seem like they're seasoned vets and they seem like they've been here for years. So I think this year is going to be a great year. We already have a solid crew. I mean, they picked up any knowledge that I've given them about beer instantaneously, so it was very easy to teach.
Bad Martha's Brewery Farm is unique, from its attachment to a nursery to its Amish-style barn.
The building itself is actually a post and beam. When they were coming up with the concept, they actually wanted the feeling of the wineries out in like Sonoma Valley. So very open, very airy. We have no TVs or anything like that because they didn't want to take away from the kind of feeling that we have, and it allows people to interact with one another, where nowadays a lot of people are staring at screens all the time. So it's very peaceful. The barn itself was actually built in Lancaster, Pennsylvania by the Amish. They did a barn raising. We took it apart, shipped it up here. They came up here with it and did another barn raising up here. They did the whole barn in 3 days. And then one of the co-owners also runs a construction company, so he also actually built the bar and the dividing wall inside. So the outside's all post and beam, no screws, no nails, anything in it. And then the inside is actually new age interior.
Living on a tourist island, getting paid to make beer. Easy living, right? Not exactly. Jake's job has him up at what many people would call an insane hour in the morning. How insane? Try 5 a.m.
It's definitely limiting. Night before, I'll go to bed earlier, so I won't be out very late. A lot of friends I've made on island are all bartenders, they're cooks, so they're all working night shifts. I'm working morning shifts, so it's very interesting hanging out with certain people because they're coming out to finally hang out after work and I'm going home already. So it's very different being the morning person. I put some music on, I kind of get in the zone, and I do my thing. Sometimes it gets a little bit kind of nuanced where I'm doing the same thing over and over again, and there's not really anybody else to talk about any kind of new projects or or new beers or ideas like that. So it does get a little different in past places I've worked with multiple brewers. So there's guys to bounce ideas off of and come up with new concepts. So it's kind of like sometimes I go a little bit crazy in my own mind because I'm kind of bouncing ideas off myself.
The part of the job that is most challenging for Jake actually has nothing to do with the brewing process. It's when all us tourists return to our regular lives at the end of the summer. It's quite a change.
It's one of the most drastic places I've ever seen. During the summer, we could have 100,000 people on island at any given time, and during the winter, there's about 10,000 year-round residents. So it goes from this place being absolutely packed full of people to, in February, I am the only employee working here. And there's days that go by where I don't see a single person.
Jake said earlier that he sees similarities to cooking with brewing. There is also a science behind being able to do this kind of work. It can be as simple or as complex as the brewer wants to make it.
We can adjust the water however we like. We can lower or raise the pH. We can make the water denser or lighter so that way it can hold more flavor or be a little bit less dense. There's everything down to when I make recipes, I have thousands of different kinds of grain, from barley to wheat to rye to oats. So there's multiple different things I can use. So it's basically what percentage of different grains do I want to use to be able to get what type of beers I want. So something like a wheat beer, I'm definitely going very heavy in the wheat. Something like today, we used a lot of two-row, which is a base malt. I'm getting a lot of sugars out of. I used a little bit of wheat, and then we use some carafoam, which helps bring out a little bit of the aromas.
So as we've already heard, Jake's workday begins at 5 a.m. He makes his recipes and plans out the brew the day before. Smart man. Then he goes about setting up his bags of ingredients for today's brew.
Right now we're just preheating the tanks. We're heating everything up, so as soon as all of our mash starts coming in, everything's right to the temperature that we want it to come in at. So we let hot water run through for about 2-3 minutes. As our grain comes in, we're hoping for the mash to be about 158 degrees. So we're gonna lose temperature because the grain's sitting at room temperature, all my stainless steel's sitting at room temperature, so we gotta warm it all up first.
As the water poured in and my camera lens fogged up, Jake started pouring grain in a dispenser in the loft. He is now adding that to the water.
So I'll actually be running back and forth, up and down, putting one bag in the mill at a time, coming down, stirring it in, running back up, putting another bag in, and that process will follow until all my grain is inside of the mash tun. So what we do is this tank up top, the little tank, is a pre-masher, so all of our grain and water is meeting in there, and it's actually becoming more of an oatmeal consistency. So ideally we're making a giant batch of oatmeal. So right now we have a two-row malt coming in. Two-row malt is just a base malt. I'm mostly extracting sugars, a little bit of flavor, and a little bit of color out of it.
Jake continues adding bags of grain to the mix. How many bags get added? It depends on the strength of the alcohol. For this batch, he'll be adding 6.5 bags.
Something like our Belgian quad, which is 10%, we use 15 bags and then actually Belgian candied sugar because I can't fit any more in my mash tun.
During one of his trips up to the loft, Jake gets some gypsum, which he then adds to table salt and water.
The water from Martha's Vineyard is very good with brewing, but it's not very strong in minerals. so it doesn't hold a lot of flavor. So by using things like gypsum and table salt, I can change the chemistry of the water. So therefore, if I go to brew this beer anywhere else in the world, I'll be able to change the water to exactly the same water I'm using here. All right, now that all of our grain and water's in, we'll do our one last secret ingredient, island grape leaves. They go in every one of our batches of our beer. Go right in at the end of the mash. One last quick stir. Now we seal it up, let the mash rest for about 20 minutes. During this time, all the enzymes in the grain will start breaking down those sugar chains. Give me nice complex sugar chains, so that way the beer in the end will end up a little bit sweet.
After the 20 minutes are up, Jake gets back to work. The mash is now running into the kettle.
So all of our wort is gravity fed into our grant, then pumped up and into our kettle. In a couple minutes, we'll actually start adding sparge water, so we'll be putting new hot water on top of the mash. That will then go through, extract more sugar, more flavor and color, and we'll get about 7.5 barrels into our kettle. So we already have all of our wort in the kettle. It's coming up to a boil, and now is the time to take all of our mash out.
That mash that Jake is raking out contains sugars, and it is edible. Just make sure you let it cool off first. It's still about 150 degrees. Once all the mash has been transferred into these buckets, Bad Martha's will call Morning Glory Farms to come pick them up and feed it to their pigs.
Most breweries find farms nearby, so that way they're not paying to dispose of any of this grain. It's still perfectly good grain. It's got some nutrients still in it. So most breweries find farms that will take all the grain. The farm gets free feed for their animals, and the brewery gets rid of the grain for free.
The mash tub gets cleaned out about once a week, while the kettle gets cleaned every time Bad Martha's brews. It is a very involved process.
I have to get all the grain and all the sugars out of the mash tun.
If I don't get everything out, it'll clog the next batch.
Jake then adds anti-foam to the mix so that the brew doesn't boil over. He says he has to be careful not to use too much because it could kill the head of the beer, meaning it would pour flat.
Fully mashed out, waiting for a boil. We're now going to set our fermenter up, so that way once our boil's over, we can knock out and pitch our yeast. So we've rinsed the tank, primed the pump, and now we're filling it full of water. We're going to put about a barrel of water in there, and we'll add some sanitizer in, so that way we'll have a sanitized solution. And before we go to put the wort into the tank, we'll give it a sanitized rinse, and it'll be ready for some beer. Wait a couple more minutes until we get a rapid boil going, and then we'll boil from that point on for about 60 minutes. During that time is where I'll start adding my hops in. With our batch today, we have 4 different hop additions. We'll be using Cascade and Tettnang. So our boil is done. Now we're doing what's called a whirlpool. We're pumping it out of the bottom, back in at an angle. It's going to turn the whole thing into a whirlpool. It's going to suck any undissolved hops, any built up proteins, anything like that to the middle, and they're going to sink to the bottom. It's almost a way to pre-filter, so that way later on in the process, I don't have to try to filter all of that out. So it's 1 pound of Cascade and 1 pound of Hellertau. So what we're adding now is Whirlflock and Yeast X. Whirlflock helps any of the proteins that have built up settle out, and Yeast X is a nutrient for the yeast. So that way it will start producing alcohol within the first 24 hours.
Jake finishes prepping the tank so he can funnel the mix over to it. This includes pumping the sanitizer from the tank through the heat exchanger. That way, everything from the kettle to the fermenter is sanitized.
So we're taking what was boiling temperature wort, and we're knocking it down to about 65 degrees. Going through a heat exchanger. The hot wort's going one temperature, cold water's going the opposite way. All that cold water is now being heated up and going into my hot water tank. That will be heated up and used for my next brewing water. So we just added all of our yeast in. It's Trappist ale yeast. So right now all of our wort's coming in, our yeast is already in, and it's coming in at about 65 degrees, which is right where we want it. Now we'll seal it up, get the rest of the wort in there, and the yeast will take over. Once everything's in, it'll live in this tank for about 2 weeks. It'll ferment for about a week. During that time, all the sugars in there will start getting slowly turned to alcohol. The yeast will replicate itself, so I can harvest yeast back out for my next batch. And it'll also produce CO2, so it'll push all the oxygen out and actually create a CO2-rich environment where the yeast likes to live. After about a week of fermentation, I'll cool this tank down to about 32 degrees. All my yeast will settle down into this cone bottom. At that point, I can now harvest my yeast back out and use it again, and at the same time, all that yeast will settle out of the beer and make it far easier for me to filter the beer.
All that's left now is the cleanup, which happens to be one of the toughest parts of the job, especially during the summer months.
My favorite is IPA, but
All right.
I love IPA.
I'll do that one. I love IPAs also.
Summer started 2 days ago, so I don't want to wait anymore.
It's the perfect weather out right now.
Thank you.
That was good. I like that summer ale.
Thank you.
Which one's this one?
The Vineyard Ale, so that's an ESB, it's an English style ale, so it's going to be a little bit more on the malty side.
Can I try that?
Yeah, definitely.
Can we both
I-
try that?
I have
actually?
that one.
Yeah.
The end of Jake's day has him first giving out samples of Bad Martha at liquor stores on the vineyard, and then a little dip in the ocean. Jake's plunge is for the hot days of summer. It's his way of rewarding himself for a hard day of work.